The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, General Comment on Article 9, accessibility, sets out that it is a precondition for persons with disabilities to live independently and participate fully and equally in society. So, without access to transport, among other facilities and services, persons with disabilities do not have equal opportunities to participate in society. And the UN Committee also notes that the physical inaccessibility of public transport and other facilities is a major factor in the marginalisation and exclusion of children with disabilities, and it markedly compromises their access to services, including health and education. So the National Transport Authority has statutory responsibility for promoting the development of an integrated, accessible public transport system. And, as you said, on all new public transport infrastructure, they have accessibility features such as wheelchair access and audiovisual aids built in from the design stage, and I very much welcome this. However, there are serious issues in relation to older infrastructure and facilities, with progress being way too slow. And for the state to align with the UN CRPD in the transport sector, there is a need to develop a sustainable and universally accessible national public transport system, including 100% of local link bus services being wheelchair accessible. There is also a need for annual targets to be developed for the retrofitting of older public transport infrastructure, with a report measuring progress against these targets. Now, transport is highlighted in the Comprehensive Employment Strategy, in the National Disability Inclusion Strategy and in the UN CRPD as one of the key services that helps people with disabilities participate in everyday life and to obtain employment. And it's estimated that by 2026, persons with disabilities will account for roughly 16% of the population. So it's crucial that this cohort of Irish society can access public transport, as well as ensure that the needs of an ageing population are met. The report on accessibility of public transport for people with disabilities, produced by the Joint Committee on Transport, Tourism and Sport in November 2018, emphasised the necessity of having integrated, universally designed public transport services that are accessible to everyone, especially persons with disabilities. And the Joint Committee on Disability Matters also highlighted this in our contribution to the draft initial state report under the UN CRPD. The Accessibility Consultative Committee set up under the National Disability Inclusion Strategy to monitor progress in making public transport more accessible highlighted that there is little consideration given to the needs of people with disabilities when designing mainstream programmes, and it further noted that such programmes can therefore be a missed opportunity at best, or at worst can further marginalise people with disabilities and can increase inequalities. The National Disability Authority made submissions to both the Metrolink and BusConnect's public consultations, which highlighted a significant lack of consultation and consideration for persons with disabilities at each step of the proposed project to ensure that the final service is universally designed. Now, the NDA also noted in their BusConnect's submission concern that the revised BusConnect's proposal did not include a number of key points that the NDA had previously advised regarding the different elements of the proposed project. There is no purpose in having consultation with disability groups if their recommendations are not taken on board. Rural Ireland is particularly badly served in terms of access to public transport in general, and in particular for people with disability. Disabled people living in rural areas are often highly dependent on family members or taxis for travel, which incurs higher costs. Local link buses serving smaller towns and villages needs to be 100% wheelchair accessible, and shuttle services to transport hubs such as existing rail stations needs to be extended. And we still have towns and villages in Ireland where if you're in a wheelchair you cannot get onto public transport. Like Bus Éireann has done considerable work to upgrade their coaches and main stations, but there are major questions about bus stops outside of the main stations and the slow progress being made on this, and it has to be dramatically accelerated. Again, I'd like to welcome the fact that all new public transport infrastructure has accessibility features such as wheelchair access and audiovisual aids built in from the design stage, but significant investment is still required in relation to older infrastructure and facilities, and what progress has been made is way too slow. And as Deputy Pringle has raised the issue of a rail service being extended to Donegal, I'd like to include Cavan and Monaghan in that, because we do not have a rail service. I don't think Fermanagh or Tyrone either, so that whole area there could be linked up very well. There was a rail service at one time and we need one again. Thank you.